you ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon.
Well, welcome to the Roundtable, everybody. My name is Robert Bannon, and you're listening to us or watching us on Broadway World or on the Broadway Podcast Network. I'm so excited that you're here. This is Broadway season, everybody. We are marching to award season, and I'm thinking about our guest today. He has a very unique situation because he was in 3 Broadway shows, but he has been directing and conducting and doing the music with the greats. He has conducted the greatest Broadway composers of all time, and he is here. He is an inspiration. He has a book that you can order. He has a story that he's going to share, and we're really excited to I want all the dish. I want to know all the secrets of all the great composers and Broadway superstars. David Loud is here. Welcome to the Roundtable, David.
Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction.
Thank you. You know, I love your career because you are somebody who came here to act your face off, and then you did so many things.
Well, I discovered what I really wanted to be doing in the business after my first experience on Broadway acting. I was so lucky as a young kid to have this just freak thing happen where I was cast in the original company of Merrily, We Roll Along at the age of 18. And I got to work with my heroes. I got to work with the people I most respected on Broadway at that time. And it was a big flop. So there was lots of other stuff to deal with as well. But what a privilege.
Well, we've had Lonnie and Ann here, and we've talked about this show and the lore of the show, but from the show and working with Stephen Sondheim, this was not the end of your run-in with Mr. Sondheim.
No, we had several over the next 40 years. I worked with him on 3 different shows, and he was always so willing not to view me as one of the Merrily kids, but rather as the music director for his next, the next revival of Company, or Sondheim on Sondheim, which we put together on Broadway for him. And he was, in addition to his brilliance, he was so kind to me and to all the other Merrily kids over the years afterwards.
I have a question for you. So where did you by the way, everybody, while we're talking, I mean, David is a fancy person. He went to Yale. He teaches over at Manhattan School of Music. Like, you are a fancy, you went from an actor to a music director to now a professor. So you have all the accolades and we're just a trashy little show here. So
well, I'm happy to be here.
We're going to try to clean it up. So when did you decide where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lake Placid, New York, on an organic farm that was part of a school that my parents taught at. And it was the last place in the world I wanted to be, because I had dreams of Broadway, and I wanted to do music on Broadway, and I wanted to be in musicals, and that was my dream. And here I was, shoveling horse manure and milking cows and plucking chickens at this school that was not devoted to the arts, really. I did have a very good piano teacher up there who loved the theater and wrote us little musicals that we did every year, and that was my favorite thing to do. But I went away to prep school and then Yale, and saw an ad in Variety, saw if they were looking for young people from Merrily, We Roll Along, and I thought, well, how could I not go to that audition? I must go. So I did, and was just so lucky that they needed somebody who could play the piano on stage, and I could play the piano.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I was assuming you're a music director, so you must play something.
I do play the piano, yes.
And is it true about the Merrily days? We'll start there because that's the start. The recording was on the closing night, and that recording is iconic now. It's part. And what does it feel like when you see the revivals and all of the Merrily may have been ahead of its time and finally caught up?
It did, and the fact that it is a hit is so surprising and wonderful to us all. We believed in the show with all our hearts, and we recorded the album the day after our closing.
Okay, got it.
We played, I think, our Saturday night show, and then we started at 9 a.m. on Sunday and finished well after 9:30 that evening. But the album captures our passion for the show, I think. And because of that album, people were able to sort of catch up with the score, and it never went out of print. And you could always, if you were that interested in Sondheim, you could investigate Merrily Roll Along. And I was so thrilled that it was finally a hit and was received the way we had hoped to be received, but were not.
So then, in your acting career, you go on to do Masterclass, and you go on to do Curtains, and you go on to. But what is the show, or what was the moment where you said, "I'm gonna be a music director"?
Well, it was right after Merrily, because I met Paul Giamignani on that show, and he was very inspiring to me. He was so in control of the pit and the stage, and he modeled for me how important a music director is to a show. And it's also the best job in the world. You're at this vortex of different spaces. You've got the actors up in front of you, you've got the musicians down in front of you, and you've got the audience behind you, and you can feel them on the back of your neck. And it's the most electrically charged place to be in the world. You're the beating heart of this musical, and it's a privileged place to be. It's still one of the most exciting things in the world to me, to conduct a performance of a Broadway show. The energy is so high, and we're all just telling a story together, and
and us as an audience, we get to see and hear the amazing music that you make. For people who don't know the business and don't know what a music director exactly does besides conducting, do you work with are you in charge of the singing, or are you in charge of just the music? Do you coordinate and work with the actors? What is the music director's job?
The music director is responsible for everything musical in the show, working with the composer to make sure that his vision is realized, working with the singers to make sure that they're all singing the music properly and in the right style, and leading the orchestra and trying to make sure that they are playing the right show. That we're all. The biggest challenge on a Broadway show is getting everybody to be doing the same show. We all want to be working towards the same goal, and shows can go wrong when that doesn't happen. But the music director has to collaborate with every single department. You have to know what the choreographer wants and make sure the dance tempos are exactly right. And if you go a little too fast one night at this spot, people can't make their costume changes. So you have to coordinate with the costume departments. You're the ultimate collaborator as the music director. But yeah, you're in charge of everything musical.
Well, what David is saying is that if I was ever hired to be in one of his shows, I would be fired, because I do not listen to any music director I've ever worked with, David.
Well, how perfectly terrible.
One day, this is a true story. One day we were doing a show regionally, and they said, "Well, that's not the exact harmony." And I said, "But that's a harmony. It's something. It's in the right key." Apparently, you don't want to hear that when you're the music director.
I'm feeling a cold wind around my heart.
See, I told you. So can we walk down memory lane? Can I ask you about a couple shows and a couple of people that you've worked with? So What can we say about working with someone like Kander and Ebb?
Well, that is one of the great love stories of my life. I was so fortunate to meet John and Fred when we were putting together And the World Goes Round, the off-Broadway show. And this was a review of songs by them. And I put it together with Scott Ellis and Susan Stroman and David Thompson. And we didn't know if they were going to like it or what was going to happen. But 2 weeks into rehearsal, Scott Ellis brought them in to see the show and give some response to it. And thank God, they just loved it. And they worked with us from then on, helping shape the show. And John said, "I want you to music direct my next show on Broadway too." And I thought, yeah, that's great. I'm sure that'll happen. And I did the next one and the next one too. I did Steel Pier for him, and Curtains, and The Visit, and Scottsboro Boys. And to have that relationship with John and with Fred while he was alive was so precious to me.
And The World Goes Round.
Broadway.
Yes.
They are Broadway before it went wrong, before rock and roll came in and changed everything.
when I was growing up, I was obsessed with Liza Minnelli, and I do, and the world goes round in my cabaret show because there's nobody who can tell a story like Liza Minnelli. There's no one who can write a song that tells a story like Kander and Ebb. It is quintessential Broadway.
That's a great song.
It's the build, David. Come on, David. That's it. So when you work with them and you do something with Chita Rivera, like The Visit, what can you say? Do you have to give Chita Rivera notes? Is that your job as the music
Chita
director?
Rivera loves getting notes.
Really?
Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me what I did wrong. Absolutely. She wants to be better. That's how Chita works. Her dressing room door is open and she's, God rest her soul, but she was like, give me notes, make me better, tell me the truth. She's one of the great ones, and she makes it so easy to collaborate with her. And it's perfectly selfish. I mean, she just wants to be better, She has no ego and just thinks everybody else around her is more talented than she is. It's just a pleasure to work with. I got to work with 3 of the amazing songwriters of the business. I worked with Bach and Harnick on a revival of She Loves Me, and I got to continue my work with Sondheim throughout my time on Broadway. And wow, what a privilege.
What a privilege is right. What a story. Is Sondheim, I'm sure a lot of people have talked to you about Sondheim, just like I'm talking to you about Miss Rivera after they're gone. But was Sondheim as much of a stickler about the music and the lyrics as the legend is? Was he wrote it for a certain way?
He wanted things the way he wrote them down. Absolutely. He took great care with what he wrote, and he wanted it, played on the piano the way he wrote it and sung the way he wrote it. I got a note from him once. It was so funny. I had to go to the dictionary to look it up. It was something about. It was in the song "Waiting for the Girls Upstairs," and he said, "Make sure the lacunae are equal in this passage." I thought, "What the hell is lacunae?" And I looked it up, and it's the little pauses between phrases, and that was a first for me. I'd never gotten a note that I had to go to Webster's to look up, but that was his vocabulary, and he knew what lacunae was, so why not use it in a sentence?
I love that. That is hysterical. I would have no idea what that means. So thank you for sharing that with me. What's it like? Another show that maybe was ahead of its time, but now it's lauded as one of the great shows with the greatest scores and the greatest cast ever is Ragtime. So you spent a moment over there as well.
Yeah, I spent 2 years conducting that on Broadway, and I would never have left if that show had run as long as Garth Drabinsky was thinking it was going to run. The ambition on that show was so strong, and Frank Galati, who directed Ragtime, was a combination of, it was like working with Santa Claus, the Pope, and Socrates or something. He was so smart and so kind and so right all the time. His note sessions were like graduate courses in theatrical technique. Magnificent man to work with. And of course, the score is just gorgeous song after gorgeous song after gorgeous song.
So, I mean, it is a stunning score. It is one of the most stunning scores of all time. While we're talking about it, can you say speaking of that show? I mean, you work with some amazing actors as well and singers. What was it like when you get to work with someone like the late, great, amazing Marin Maisie?
Well, she was in a special category. She was an angel come down to earth and had the voice of an angel and the heart of an angel and the soul of an angel. One of my favorite people ever. So giving and so funny. And I always looked forward to Back to Before in Ragtime because she would come out barefoot, and I thought it was so cute. And to have Audra McDonald in the same show.
I was gonna ask.
3 feet away from me on stage, singing that apology to her baby. It is the beautiful song, Your Daddy's Son. That was an extraordinary experience to have every night. Brian Stokes Mitchell, who still sounds like Brian Stokes Mitchell all these years later. But he was at the prime of his voice at that time, and it was a stunning show to be a part of.
That is a cast. That's a cast, people. That's a cast. You know what's funny, David? When that show ran a couple years later, we were doing I was doing summer stock in Connecticut, and every theater company around from the Berkshires to New England was doing Ragtime. So every time we had a weekend off while we rehearsed, we drove hours and just saw
all the different Ragtimes,
all the different ideas of the attic and the ghosts coming out, and then one production made it, and it was just. But it doesn't matter what they do with that show. When that music is sung, you're done. Just put a fork in me.
Right.
So these shows, some other performers that you've worked with, what's it like? You did Curtains, and shout out to Rupert Holmes, who's been here, and the whole team over at Curtains. David Hyde Pierce, who's back on Broadway, getting
the
amazing.
Funniest man in America.
What's it like to work with him?
Oh my God. If only I could just work with David Hyde Pierce the rest of my life, I would be so happy. He is the kindest, sweetest, funniest, dearest, most mischievous, hilarious man you could ever meet. And his intention on every show he does is that everybody in the building have a wonderful time. And he shows us how to do that. And he treats everybody with great respect and great love. And on Curtains, that company, they would go to battle for each other. That company loved each other so much. And it was all because of him and Deb Monk just sort of showing us how to do it. I was so thrilled for the kids in that show who were making their Broadway debut with people like David Hyde Pierce and Deb Monk and Michael McCormick and Karen Ziemba and Jason Danieli, and just great experienced theater people who know how to behave. And those ensemble members who sort of came up with us are the finest people around.
Yeah. Well, your career's bar none. You would have been music directing some of the great shows with the greatest composers of all time, some of the greatest voices of all time, definitely on Broadway. I know we are taping this on the day that the Tony nominations came out. Audra got her 187th Tony nomination this morning. And it rolls on and on. But what I was really moved about, and what people can also check out, it's a couple years old, but it's as relevant as ever, is your book, your memoir, The Facing the Music, which is available. You can get it wherever books are sold. It's on Amazon right now. You can get yourself a copy. Speaking of David Hyde Pierce, he writes the most beautiful message to you to read the book, implores you to read the book. What was it like to go back and tell these stories? What can we hear in the book?
Well, it was a great joy for me to write. It took me 6 years to write it. I never dreamed that it would take me that long to do it. But I wanted to write about what it's like to be the music director of a show, because there isn't a lot of literature that explains what a music director does and what it feels like and how it can be a life, a career on Broadway. And I was so happy in that career and felt so right once I figured out that I did not belong on stage. I belonged just below the stage, but in front of it. And then it started, the book, as I was writing the book, it turned out to be about other things as well. It turned out to be my journey from the Adirondacks to New York and what that meant. And the book contains little portraits of the hilarious and wonderful people that I got to work with over the years, working on Broadway, working with Zoe Caldwell and her husband, Robert Whitehead, who produced Masterclass. Audra, I worked with in Masterclass and in Porgy and Bess and in Ragtime. And being fitted by William Ivy Long for a costume so that I could play Sasha, who was the conductor of the show within the show in Curtains. I had a Russian accent for that. It was very, very, very Michael Cerveris, very Meryl Streep. So the book is about my life in the business and music directing, and also dealing with, when life gives you challenges How do we accept them and move on?
Well, that's my next question, because maybe your greatest lessons in your life will be the way that you write about and talk about. And I was reading other interviews with you about facing your challenge, about facing challenges, and your advocacy work for Parkinson's. My uncle is a victim of Parkinson's, and my family has advocated and worked and spread the word. And people do not know what the journey is like for the one diagnosed and the family around you. So, do you mind talking about it and the journey?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm happy to. I'm sorry to hear about your uncle. It's a terrible disease, and it affects people very differently. There's a different set of systems, different set of symptoms created for each victim of the disease. My first reaction when I was diagnosed was that I had to hide that information from the world because it would take away my career. And my career was what I loved and what I did, and I couldn't imagine life without it. So I tried to hide it as much as possible, and that grew ridiculous over time. And when I did come out about it in a way that I had never had to come out really as a gay man, that seemed to be perfectly clear to everybody.
Yes.
The reaction was so positive and so supportive, and it was ridiculous that I spent 2 or 3 years so gnarled up in knots that somebody might notice that I was a little shaky or a little unexpressive, or that I couldn't get into a jacket. And the result of it has been a change of career. I couldn't do 8 shows a week on Broadway anymore. I just didn't have the stamina and the strength that required. But I found myself teaching at Manhattan School of Music, and I couldn't be happier. I love teaching. I have so much respect for teachers. My father was a great teacher, a math teacher. My mother taught, and I never wanted to be a teacher, but now that I'm doing it, it seems like the best thing ever.
I understand. As a teacher myself in high school, during the day to pay my bills, I never wanted to be a teacher, but I'm grateful I'm a teacher every single day.
Absolutely. The students are inspiring and passionate, and I learn something every day from them, and I hope I'm able to pass along my passion and inspiration. I teach a year-long history course that is just such a pleasure to go through each year and figure out the great moments of Broadway history and which ones we're going to concentrate on and share. And I love the course.
I was going to ask you, what do you teach? That's what you teach?
I teach song performance, the basic, like, what do you do when somebody hands you a piece of music that has notes on it, and how to start learning how to sing a song. And I teach that with Mana Allen, who was in Merrily. We wrote along with me. So we've known each other for 8,000 years. And we teach that course together. And then I teach the history course, which is the students when they're sophomores.
Wow.
Sometimes they do a Sondheim intensive the second semester as well.
Well, who better? I mean, come on. Well, the Manhattan School of Music, shout out to them. They're one of the premier schools of music in the entire world. I have a student of mine who's there right now, I think is a sophomore. And when he got in,
who's that?
His name is Aiden Olmo.
Oh, yes, absolutely. He was just one of the princes in Into the Woods for us.
He sure was. And that's my baby. I was with him throughout high school, teaching him how to, stay on pitch and learn different things. And
he was hilarious in Into the Woods.
He's a good actor.
Prince.
He's a good Jersey, my Jersey brethren out here in New Jersey. And so, when he got in, I remember going through his audition materials and the dream of him going to conservatory or school for music and his family supporting him. And you get to deal with all these people who have for years dreamed of this moment to go to school for this, and you give them the ability to then have a career.
Well, it's very different from teaching, people who have to get an arts credit to graduate from high school or college. These kids are passionate, and they've made the decision to devote their life to being an actor, and they're going to conservatory, not to a liberal arts college. And that's a big commitment and a big step and a big brave lurch towards a professional career, which is so difficult to actually achieve. But they're doing very well. We've got lots of our alums are already getting Broadway shows, and this is our 9th year. I helped found the program 9 years ago, and it still feels like it's a new program. I think we're growing, and we have room to grow still.
For you, it must be as exciting a bit when you think of your Broadway debut, regardless of what happened to Merrily and the heartbreak of that show might have been at that moment. But when you sit in the audience or you get that email from a student who books their first Broadway show, it must be just as exciting.
So exciting. And you never know where it's going to be. You never know which student is going to crystallize and grow in that moment into what exactly is needed for that particular moment on stage. Sometimes the ones who I think, when I meet them as freshmen, this is never going to happen. I'm totally wrong. And they'll have an experience over the summer before their junior year that changes them into a different person. And all of a sudden, everything that you've said to them makes sense. And it's great fun to watch every year. Which ones grow the most, and which ones come back with a different haircut, and all of a sudden everything's better.
I wish for me it was just the haircut. That I could have worked on.
Just that, yeah.
I want people to know that while we're talking, please get the book. The book is called Facing the Music, a Broadway Memoir, if you want to hear all of these stories. And then you and your health and the way that you are, what have you learned in your process through music, through is the music still there? I'm sure you love music, and through all of your trials and tribulations, you probably find more peace, solace in art and music than ever.
Well, to spend a life in music is to spend it in joy. I have a rich life of creating. I do a lot of vocal arranging still, and I love taking out old vocal arrangements of mine and having the students sing them. And I'm so grateful that life has turned out the way it turned out, because a lot of the maturity and the wisdom that I feel give me a ground to teach from. I don't know if I would have found those without the challenges of Parkinson's. It focused my life, and it focused my act 3 of my show, my little show I'm putting on here, in a way that really made some growth possible. That was great.
Well,
and thank you for talking about the book. It was a great pleasure to write, and I'm very proud of it. It's me on those pages, and I hope you enjoy it.
I'm going to grab a copy. I'll be reading it this spring and this summer. It's perfect for all the theater fans out here and all of us music nerds that are out here. It's a perfect book for us to read. And I look forward to all the music and all the students that you help, and all the Broadway debuts and all of the things that you have a hand in, from some of the greatest theater that has ever been done in the entire world to the next generation that you're working on now. You, sir, have done us all a real service by providing us with so much joy, and we're grateful and thank you for all the work you've done.
Wow.
And do. So if you want to go to Manhattan School of Music, you got to get yourself together and apply.
Absolutely.
And if you want a great book to read about the insides of working with some of the greats on Broadway, we got the book for you. And you're a real inspiration. It was a real joy and honor to talk to you. It was nice to meet you, David.
Absolutely, Robert. Thank you so much for having me.